Welcome Capricorn to your in-depth year 2026 horoscope forecast. I'm going to share to begin with some of the big themes of the year ahead, then on screen the solar return right at the start of the year always provides a very influential backdrop for the whole 12 months, and that contains some truly exciting news for your sign in particular. I'm then going to go through each of the big events of the year in a frame by frame way to give you a clear picture of what to look forward to this year, the opportunities and the challenges. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundell. Thank you so much for joining me. If you've yet to subscribe to the channel, please help it to continue to thrive and do so now. As we go into each new year, we always need to be conscious of the backdrop of the eclipses, which are already in effect. In September we had two. So as we come into the new year, how you think and how you communicate with people is being strongly flavoured by those eclipses. But the second of those, the solar eclipse on the 21st of September, has given you perhaps an appetite for expansion recently. And through the latter end of 2025, whether it's been through higher education, through holidays, vacations, through just changing your life up and bringing more variety to bear, has probably been quite a theme. And it's going to continue to be a theme all through this year. But the ninth house solar eclipse was opposed by your ruler in your third house. And to really make the most of that ninth house energy, what you need to do as you come into this new year is keep an open mind. Because what Saturn in the third house can do is perhaps reinforce some of the views and tastes and approaches to life that you've had for a long time. And what the solar eclipse is asking you to do, and also one of the two lunar eclipses of this new year, which occurs on the 3rd of March, is to just freshen things up. So whether it is to do with some of your beliefs, some of your learning, whether it's to do with the people that you're connecting to, the more freshness that you have, the more it can stimulate all different parts of your new year experience. Now also, as we come into this new year, Saturn, your ruler, is back into the sign of Pisces, as I mentioned, and it's going to be there through to the middle of February. So it does suggest choosing your words with care will be important throughout the new year. But Saturn will then move in the middle of February into the sign of Aries, where it briefly visited last year. So over the next couple of years, there's going to be a lot of attention in your life about where you live, who you live with, and how you live there. It could be to do with the structural, the actual physical place you live, or more to do with the emotional dimension. Now Neptune, the planet of dreams, also went into the sign of Aries last year and re-enters at the end of January. Now they're both going to come together, Neptune and Saturn, on the 18th of February. And that could be a really critical point for you to think very carefully about issues to do with physical and emotional security. Perhaps also to do with expanding your family, perhaps downsizing, in some ways adapting your accommodation to make it function that much more efficiently. But also as we come into this new year, we are going to be greeting a new eclipse series. The first of which is on the 17th of February in the sign of Aquarius, which for you represents your values, everyday money, self-worth, and the foundations of your life. Of course, you've got Pluto in this location, which moved into Aquarius late in 2024. So over the next few years, becoming clearer about what you want is going to be important around all those areas. But this eclipse is challenged by the modern ruler of the sign of Aquarius, which for you is starting this year back in the 5th house. So as you make your way into the new year, Uranus is saying to you, be very open-minded, particularly around innovation. Technology is changing life a lot for many of us. We can resist it or we can embrace it. And Uranus at the start of the year says be open to it. But that square to that solar eclipse does caution you to be perhaps a little bit risk averse in the first 6 months of this year. You have a reputation of being very thorough, very shrewd in your approach to situations. I wouldn't let a lifetime's approach of that change through this first half of the year, because if you do something more speculative quickly on a hunch, perhaps on an impulse, it won't necessarily pay off well for you. We have that lunar eclipse in Virgo on the 3rd of February, and that's still going to be a theme: how you think, how you discuss things with people. But because of Saturn starting this year influencing your third house, just know that some people could perceive you as being a little cool or detached. But there is a counterpoint to that, which I will share with you through that solar return shortly. But of course, last year we did have Jupiter, the planet of opportunity, move into your sector of relating. The problem was it immediately came into conflict with Saturn on the 15th of June. So I don't feel that you necessarily got the best of Jupiter last year, particularly with the retrograde. But as you come into this new year, if there is a key relationship that you're enjoying or you want to meet someone new, I feel your prospects can be improved in the first 6 months of this year. And if you think positively, then obviously that could trigger some positive action too. And that's what Jupiter's about. But Jupiter does encourage us not to perhaps expect too much. And that's where your natural penchant for application is going to be so important for you. Now, Uranus returns back into the sign of Gemini on the 26th of April. Over the next 7 years, the everyday routines of your life are almost certain to change. There may be part of you that wants to liberate yourself from certain obligations that you start this year with, whether it is to do with your work. You may retrain in some way. You may gain a much greater appreciation of technology. You may also, in some ways, want to use your mind and your intellect in order to help other people. That's definitely a prospect for you. But as Uranus returns to Gemini, it is linking with Pluto in your sector of everyday money. And remember the echo of that solar eclipse of Aquarius. So if there are opportunities to perhaps switch what you do for a living or how you earn money, being as open as possible will definitely be to your advantage. This is not a year to be resistant to what's going on around you. However, Jupiter is going to be moving on from your sector of relating, but dives deep into the 8th house at the end of June. The 8th house is what we share with others, but it can also be about entrepreneurship, investment, long-term financial planning. And Jupiter, of course, can be about fortune. And the host, Leo, is very much about self-confidence. Your ability to engender positivity, but also improve your income in the second half of this year is definitely going to be boosted in a significant way. But the North Node, the point of destiny, follows on from the solar eclipse in Aquarius. They always are very much in touch, inversing into Aquarius for the first time in 18.7 years, I should say, at the end of July, the true North Node, the 26th of July. So over the next year and a half, it's really asking you to get in touch with your values. So it's merging in a way with the energy of Pluto by sign, but also we had that eclipse as well. So you may find that some of your approach to money, your values and the foundations of your life could change quite significantly over this next year and a half. But then we have a solar eclipse, the second of the year, the first for 19 years, in the sign that the sun rules of Leo. Very radiant. Jupiter's there, but also Mercury, the planet of business. If you are wanting to be successful in terms of expanding whatever you're doing, there's a really excellent chance for you to turn up the volume and have that success in the second half of year 2026. But it is, of course, going to be important to still stay in touch with the need for that clear communication because of the opposition between Virgo and Pisces across the two lunar eclipses. And the last of them occurs on the 28th of July in the sign of Virgo, and that really provides a backdrop for the last part of the year. So there's going to be some very, very big conversations this year. If you are involved in a business that's to do with travel, languages, technology or publishing, it's going to be a very important time indeed. But I do feel that that solar eclipse is something that can play out in your love life as well, because the 8th house is very much where we're devoted, but it can also be where things make way. So if you're all in and someone else is all in, there's a very, very good skyscape for you in that last part of the year. But if you're in a situation where you feel cramped, limited, in some ways inhibited, Jupiter likes room, and it certainly likes a degree of autonomy. So if that's not quite working for you, that could get you thinking. So Jupiter is also about knowledge. So if you want to gain greater understanding, especially around anything to do with investments, property, and insurances and so on, you could find yourself being very canny in the last half of this year. Now, Mercury is a planet which is very much about communication, but also precision. It's how we think, it's how we express ourselves, always key. But it starts this year, Capricorn, in a very tender location, but for the 3rd year in succession in your 12th house. But just before I go into that, I want to share with you about my unique offer. You can order your personal natal forecast for year 2026 now, and I'll give you the rest of this year free. But also you'll get 30% off the individual prices, and you'll get your life roadmap report in my special package. That really helps you to understand the patterns that have played out in your life so far. All of us. It's totally unique to each person, but understanding those patterns and matching them to the forecast will help you to make your moves in the new year much more shrewdly. But also in my special offer, you'll get your free general zodiac forecast for each of the 12 signs, but also your Chinese forecast, your Vedic forecast and your love forecast too in my special booklets. Please see the link below for more. Is your solar return for the year, and you can see there's Mercury in the 12th house. 12th house energy can make us a little anxious. It can evoke anxieties and also sensitivities. But look at the location of your ruler, Saturn. At 2610, that's pretty well an exact square with Mercury, which is a stressful energy. But also Neptune, the planet of dreams and illusions, is squaring up with Mercury too. Not all the conversations you're going to enjoy this year will necessarily be as straightforward as you would like. It's important for you to understand your subconscious, or perhaps the things you're very sensitive about, possibly to do with your past, but it's also key to be attuned to what other people are saying to you, because maybe people will be expressing some fine ideas, but you need to be able to define the value and worth of what they're saying. Now, if we take the position of the Sun, 10 degrees 34 in your sign, as it always is at the start of the year, just into the second decan of Capricorn, subruled by Venus, that's good for your finances. But it's forging a stunning alliance to the part of fortune in the sign of money, Taurus. So that's a mutual receptivity that you can make work for you fabulously well. But of course the 5th house, where the part of fortune is about speculation. And I'm mentioning to you that it is important to be a little bit conservative because of that solar eclipse in Aquarius, 2nd house, in the square with Uranus, 5th house. But what I would say is, if we take the point between the moon in the practical 6th house, the sun in your 1st house, urging you to take a firm grip on your life direction this year, that midpoint aligns exactly with your ruler Saturn. And like Saturn and Neptune, is therefore squaring with Mercury. So if you encounter someone this year that you are not so sure of, if you get a gut feeling that they're not on the level, listen to that gut feeling carefully. But what you do have at the heart of your solar return, Capricorn, is that stunning trio: Venus, the relator, but also the money planet, the Sun, heart of our very existence, but also the thrust of Mars. Mars loves being in Capricorn. He's exalted here. When Venus and Mars together, it can make us very amorous. It can certainly give us a lot of desire, but the desire for you, particularly for a sign that has a reputation for being or having an appreciation of the orthodox, of more sustained, more established approaches to life, what this year you're being urged to do is really be much more direct about expressing your fabulous creativity and flair. And if you have times in your life perhaps been a little reserved, perhaps all the way to shy when you were very young, this is a year when you can draw so much goodness to you. So if you're looking for a new romantic relationship, year 2026 may well bring you one, and don't be surprised if you have a choice of more than one person. So as you go into this year, that's giving you a lot of thrust, it's giving you a greater sense of your attractiveness and allure. You may give yourself a glamorous makeover, buy some clothes in the winter sales, the January sales, that can just give you an extra sense of feeling very desirable, and why not indeed. But just to tell you, that Mercury position, which remember is in the 12th house, can be to do with secrets, can be to do with worries, can be to do with people who are not necessarily on our side. But Mercury's clash with Uranus at the start of this year is a quincunx, or known as an inconjunction. That 150-degree angle is quite tricky, and because Mercury is in that hidden, sheltered 12th house, but Uranus is all out there in the 5th, which can be very brave and bold. Again, it's just saying that when it comes to resources, I would proceed with a degree of caution. But if you wanted to invest in or spend greater time on a hobby you really enjoy, whether it's crafting, whether it's writing, whether you paint, take photographs, whether you're someone who does want to bring an extra sense of spice to your love life, that collective of Venus, the Sun and Mars in your sign is absolutely fantastic. So let's give you an overview for this year. The big opportunity for you, Capricorn, is definitely in terms of your communications, but also having faith in your individuality. That comes from that cluster in the sign of Capricorn of Venus, the Sun and Mars. So this could make you bolder and perhaps not necessarily risk-taking, but just much more on the front foot. Jupiter gives you an uplift in terms of relationships the first 6 months, but in the second 6 months of the year, I feel the focus for you could be reaping a lot of rewards for a lot of hard work that you put in over a long period of time that can finally come back to you. But when it comes to conversations and when it comes to your connections to people, I think Saturn and Neptune moving into your 4th house suggests you're probably going to get a little bit fussier about who you spend time with on an everyday emotional basis. You may consider relocating, simplifying your life in terms of your home. And that could be quite a theme for the next couple of years. But I feel Saturn in the 4th house will show up those people who are perhaps not quite supportive of you emotionally. And just be conscious of that Mercury starting the year in the 12th house. And just to finalise, Mercury is going to be going through 3 retrogrades this year. The first begins on February the 26th, through to March the 20th in the buzzy 3rd house, but the host is Pisces. Mercury does not work well in Pisces. There could be some real bogged down energies at that time. Then we have the second, also in a water sign of Cancer, and that's from June the 29th to July the 23rd. There could be misunderstandings around relationships. Work hard at keeping your message crystal clear. Then we have the last of them is in Scorpio, your sector of friendship, from October the 24th, November the 13th. Again, if you're connecting to people, you may find that there's changes of plan. A friend may prove unreliable. A long-term plan you have may need to be adapted. Venus is going to be going retrograde also this year, in the autumn, in the fall, and in the spring in the southern hemisphere, from October the 3rd to November the 14th, inverting 41 days. Could slow things around down, perhaps around a professional relationship. Maybe someone that you thought you could rely upon turns out to be a bit of a disappointment. But your ruler goes retrograde on July the 26th for its annual 5-month rewind through to December the 10th. But the great news is that Jupiter, when it moves into your sector of long-term money, doesn't begin its retrograde till later this year in December. So that's a real definite window of opportunity for you. But that Saturn retrograde through the summer months and through to early December does suggest if there are some family or emotional issues that aren't quite running quite as well as they could, that may be where you'll need to put your legendary hard work and application into in order to resolve. Or maybe it will be some physical repairs to where you live. If you'd like to work with me one-to-one, Capricorn, please see my testimonials below. And also, you can visit my new website at patrickarundell.com and enjoy your free daily, weekly, monthly, yearly general, love and Vedic horoscopes. Also, my 3 free card tarot, which if I say so myself is brilliant. And you can also sign up for your free natal chart too.